I believe that everybody has a story, and I'm fascinated to hear them. So come with me as we take a walk down Fascination Street. Hey guys, you know how much I love 5-4, which is now Menlo Club. Remember, I've been a member for over 2 years now, and I love them. Well, I got together with the folks at Menlo Club, and they're offering my listeners a 50% off plus a free pair of 5-4 sunglasses when you sign up. Menlo Club is great clothes. They come to your door every month. It's $60. That includes tax. That includes shipping. You get to select your sizes, your styles. It's really super easy. And like I said, the clothes are great. So go to menloclub.com, sign up, use the promo code FSP, as in Fascination Street Podcast, and you will get 50% off your first month plus a free pair of 5-4 sunglasses. Thanks, guys. Hi, everybody. This is Steve Owens from Fascination Street Podcast. I really appreciate your listening to the show. I'm having a lot of fun getting to talk to some really fascinating people, and I want to continue doing this, but I need your help. I need you to subscribe and tell people about the show. But the biggest thing you can do to help me is to rate and review the show on iTunes or wherever you listen through. As a special thank you, anyone who rates and or reviews the show, send me a screenshot as proof and I will mail you a set of 3 pair of silk cufflinks courtesy of my friends at Menlo House. You can send it via Twitter to @FascinationSTPD, via Instagram to FascinationStreetPod, or email me at FascinationStreetPod@gmail.com. I really appreciate all of you for listening and for helping. Thank you so much. Now let's get to this week's guest. Hey guys, this episode is with Brittany Quagan. She's the author of the Wren Young Adult series of books, as well as being a psychic medium. We talk about how she found out she was a little bit gifted. We talk about her work with Yale to find a bridge between mediums and the so-called mentally ill. And of course we talk about her books, Wren Awakened and Wren Reposed. This episode is dedicated to the super rad Peter W.G. Enjoy, guys. Yeah, talk to me, yeah. Welcome to the show, Brittany Quagan. Did I say that right?
You did.
Awesome. Can I just call you Brittles?
You can.
Hi, Brittles. Welcome to Fascination Street.
Hi, thank you.
Okay, so you are an author, but before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about you. Is that cool?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so you were born and raised in Tibet, the son of a working-class chair farmer. No, wait. So where were you born? Where are you from?
I was born in Connecticut, in a teeny weeny little podunk town, East Granby. It's super tiny.
Well, you did say teeny weeny. Is that where you are now? I know you're in Connecticut, right?
No, I'm not in East Granby anymore. I finally left there. I'm just outside of Hartford now, the Farmington area.
So I'm from Texas, and Texas is about as big as, 47 Connecticut's. So
pretty much.
What's it like to grow up in such a tiny little state?
People complain about it, and I used to complain about it quite a bit, but it's really not that bad. I like the 4 seasons and things like that, but as far as things to do, you better have some hobbies, because there's not a lot going on. I feel like everything is at least a 25-minute drive from where I live, but that's because I don't live in the city. But when you get to New Haven and Hartford and things like that, there's plenty of stuff going on, but otherwise, it's pretty boring. It's quiet. If you live near an airport, you'll hear planes. That's about it.
It sounds delightful.
Yeah, it's very quaint.
Have you lived there your whole life?
I have.
Wow. Well, that's awesome.
I lack adventure in terms of moving away, but I try to travel so that way I can experience life a little bit outside of Connecticut.
Is A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court required reading?
What?
You know that book, A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court? Is that required reading?
I haven't even heard about it, so I hope not.
Are you kidding me? Oh my gosh. Wow. So,
Connecticut Yankee
in
in King Arthur's Court. No, enlighten
Wow.
me.
That is amazing. Okay, so the Connecticut school system is terrible. So,
Oh, God,
I
I love it.
I have heard you described as an empath. Can you tell me what that means?
Me described as an empath. Oh, yes. So an empath is a term coined, I guess, in the spiritual world for people who are highly sensitive to energy, but they also absorb energy. So, like, we know empathy is kind of like, oh, I can feel your pain. But with an empath, it's somebody like, I can literally feel your pain. So if you have a headache, I have a headache type of thing. They're not like sympathy feelings. It's more like I'll feel the pain without you telling me that you have the pain. And then because I have the pain, I would say like, oh, do you have a headache? And they'd be like, yeah. And I'd be like, oh, yeah. So do I.
So how does that
In a
work?
nutshell, that's what an empath is.
So how does that work? Is it like a proximity thing? Like I just developed this ingrown hair on like around my knee, and so it kind of hurts, and you can't feel that, right?
My knee is killing me. No, I cannot feel that. I used to be way more sensitive than I am now, but I've kind of, I guess you could say, trained myself to have more of a boundary with people. It used to drive me crazy, but now I'm kind of one of those things that I can turn on and off.
I would imagine that growing up with something like that, like I would probably feel like I was going crazy or I had some sort of a weird mental condition. Did you ever go through any of that?
Oh my God. I was at the Institute of Living.
The,
Like literally. No, I struggled with a lot of my own issues with mental illness, just a lot of depression and anxiety, probably for 20 years, where I was medicated, and that didn't really do anything because, I mean, if you think about it, if I'm like literally feeling energy, meds aren't really going to stop something like that. But yeah, it was certainly a struggle because for me, it was kind of like you're feeling everybody's crap all the time. So if this person just broke up with their boyfriend, and this person's like dad just died, and this person just got a raise, and this person's upset about something, like, and you're in a room with all of them, you start to feel all of those emotions. So there's a lot of this like up and down experience that starts to happen. And, you know, naturally you go to the doctor, they're going to be like, oh, well, you're definitely mentally ill. And that's pretty much what happened for the bulk of my life until I actually like learned about this whole empath thing. And that kind of, well, it literally just like changed my life learning about that. So yeah, no more mental illness over here.
so I mean, as far as going to a doctor and telling them, you know, I'm sad sometimes and I don't know why, or I'm overly happy and I don't know why, like there's like it couldn't go any other way that they would just be like, well, I mean, you obviously have some issues here, take this drug.
Right.
So now since you've been able to, you know, kind of work with it and train yourself, are you off medications?
Yeah.
Oh,
I have not had an anxiety attack or depression or been on meds in 11 years.
Congratulations and happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Very exciting.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So tell me about what you do. What were you doing, like, oh, I don't know, earlier today? What's your day job?
My day job, it actually, speaking of empath and mental illness, so I own a business now where I work with, well, I'm a therapist, but I also work with people who have anxiety, who have depression, but a lot of people who experience this energy thing with being an empath. So because I had to learn how to basically build all these skills to function my own self, when that first happened for me, it was like, oh my God, how many other people are slapped on meds right now and still not functioning that could be going through what I am? And that prompted me to sort of like embark on this journey of opening up a business to help people like that. So it started off as a place just for spiritual healing and things like Reiki and meditation and life coaching, and we did readings and all kinds of fun stuff like that. And then I went to school, and I'm just finishing up my LPC now, actually. So my day job is therapy and life coaching and private classes and group classes and things like that. So today was a lot of that kind of stuff and prepping curriculum for classes and finishing a paper, actually, which was lovely.
Did you say giving readings?
Yeah, I did.
What does that mean?
Like psychic readings.
Like tarot cards?
Well, there's tarot, and then there's just plain psychic and mediumship readings. It's like talking to dead people and telling you what you're going through right now and what's going to happen.
That's rad. How did you learn how to read tarot cards?
Tarot cards are pretty easy. That I just took a class, actually, with one of my best friends. She's a tarot reader. And actually, she's the person, I worked with her in insurance when I was about 19 or 20, and she told me that I was an empath. I was there, like, at the heightened state of my anxiety and depression, and she actually saved my life because of that. So she kind of helped me out with this whole energy thing and then taught me how to read tarot and how to do readings and fun stuff like that. So I teach people how to do that now, which is pretty cool.
So you said she basically saved your life. Is it because she let you know that you weren't crazy?
Yes, which I think is super important for anybody, if they have mental illness or not. I remember, like it was yesterday, I remember sitting at my desk, like hammering away at the keys, all like freaked out because I was feeling, like I had a brain aneurysm or something. And she finally like crept over to my desk and she was like, "Can I talk to you for a minute?" She's like, "Sure." She's like, "So I'm a psychic medium." And I'm like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah. And I need you to know that I don't feel like you actually have anxiety just like from, our own thoughts that give you all of these like fear-like belief systems." But she said, I feel like you're super sensitive to everybody's energy that's around you and from like spirits. I'm like, oh my God, what? I didn't really think she was crazy. It kind of resonated with me right away. So I just asked her a bunch of questions and she gave me some books to read, and it kind of was like a light bulb went off. So yeah, from the time that I had that conversation with her to the time I got off meds and stopped having anxiety was only like a 3-week span.
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't like I needed a really long time to acclimate, I guess. I called my doctor probably 2 weeks after because I hadn't had any anxiety at all. And I was having panic attacks like every day, like 4 to 6 times a day. And I told her I wanted to wean off medication. She was like, "I don't know if that's the best idea." And I was like, no, I'm doing it. So you can either tell me how or I want to do it anyway. And then I got off the meds and that was it. Kind of crazy. No pun intended.
Well, I think that's really cool. Do you want to give that friend a shout out? It sounds like she changed your life.
I think she'd kill me. I literally call her Wolf Mother because people aren't supposed to know who she is.
All right, cool.
She's well known in the psychic medium community, but I joke and call her Wolf Mother. She'll know that that's her.
Well, good job. Thanks a lot, Wolf Mother.
She'll appreciate that.
A little birdie told me you did some work with some doctors at Yale concerning mental health. What's that all about?
Yeah, so that's another part of my day job. This is like the most exciting part, I think. It's the most exciting part of my job is that I do therapy at my private practice, but also I'm working on a research study at Yale, and I do therapy there as well. And we're currently working on a study to take a look at clinical voice hearers. So that's people who are diagnosed with a psychotic disorder like schizophrenia, where they're hearing voices, versus non-clinical voice hearers, which are like psychic mediums. So we're looking at these two groups because if you were to line up the symptoms of a psychic medium versus somebody who has a psychotic disorder, they are going to look eerily similar. You have people who feel things, that think things or know things that other people don't. They're hearing voices, they're seeing spirits, a lot of them have anxiety or depression that they deal with at some point in their life. And if you say, oh, I hear voices, if you go somewhere, again, like a doctor, they're going to say, oh, mental illness. But if you were to come to someone like me, it's going to be like, well, let's figure out where these voices are coming from. If it's actually you, or are you connecting with spirits? But the biggest difference is obviously that the psychic medium community, for the most part, is a community that they're functioning. They know how to manage the voices. They know how to have a relationship with the voices. They have a happy life for the most part, a functioning life. The people who have a psychotic disorder, often they're very burdened by these voices, or their symptoms exacerbate, and they start to experience what we call negative symptoms. That's like, you don't want to shower anymore, and you don't want to go to work anymore, and you just kind of hole up in your house, and you have, just an overall negative life experience. So these doctors are super fascinated with this idea that you can be someone who can hear voices and have a very functioning life versus the community that they work with. And since I am a psychic medium, and my experience very much mimicked that of many people who have a psychotic disorder or who are prodromal, which means that they haven't converted yet to psychosis, they wanted to work with me on the study. So look at those communities, but also to try and come up with some new treatments to try and help people without medication if possible, but in a way that will actually benefit them versus actually, just rotting away on meds and not actually being able to function otherwise. Pretty fun.
Wow. So at the very beginning of that, you said that it was kind of two groups of people. One was diagnosed voice hearers, and one group was not diagnosed voice hearers?
Yeah, so we call them clinical voice hearers, non-clinical voice hearers, and a clinical voice hearer diagnosis clinically. So, like, you have schizophrenia or some sort of psychotic disorder. And a non-clinical voice hearer is somebody who hears voices, but they don't have a diagnosis for a mental illness because they don't meet the criteria for a mental illness. So, like, I have a lot of symptoms, for example, of someone with mental illness, because I'll hear voices and see things that other people don't, or know things that are going to happen, but I'm functioning and I don't have any of these negative symptoms that come with a psychotic disorder. And functioning is like the crucial part of that, because a lot of people might have some slight symptoms of mental illness, but you're fully functioning. Like, we all have anxiety, but we're all able to function until it gets worse. So that group who has not been diagnosed and still has some of those symptoms.
Got you. And how did Yale find you, or you find Yale? How'd that work out?
So I actually was a subject in the pilot study for this, where I was one of the non-clinical voice hearers and had to go through all the testing, and they did MRIs on my brain and interviews and things like that. We got to talking, and I reached out to one of the doctors probably 2 years after that because I needed to get clinical hours for my LPC, and I didn't want to waste my time. This is going to sound really bad, but I didn't want to spend my time at a methadone clinic because my demographic isn't really people who have drug and alcohol issues. So I wanted to do something that actually pertained to my field, which is really anxiety and depression. When I reached out to see if they had anything cool going on, they were just like, actually, do you want to lead this study with us? And I was like, okay. So that's kind of how that happened.
Well, that's really cool. My wife is a psychiatric nurse, a master's prepared psychiatric nurse for the past 20 plus years. And what she does currently is she opens hospitals, mental and so it's psychiatric and substance abuse hospitals all over the country. So that's what she does right now. And her whole family is psychiatric nurses, like her sister and her brother and her mother, everybody's a psychiatric nurse. Well, maybe her brother's just a regular nurse, but whatever. So I think it's interesting that, there's this connection between psychiatric nurses, that I've seen and interacted with. There's this really strong connection between psychiatric nurses and the spiritual world. When I met my wife, and we still have them on the shelf, she probably has 20 decks of tarot cards and books about tarot, and it's oddly not really ever come up. But, you know, like, but there is this really strong, like, connection. You know, it's not just her, it's her sister and her mother. There's a strong connection with, like, spirits and fairies and, you know, just kind of, not, like, just sort of non-traditional, otherworldly kind of thinking. And I think that connection is really cool.
Yeah, me too. And I feel like it's because there's just a very fine line between spirituality and what we call mental illness. You know, a lot of what mental illness was or is just a lot of being different. And I've always had this, like, interesting theory that people who have, not all people, but many people have, or that are diagnosed with this, like, psychotic disorder or, you know, just intense experiences are really just experiencing something far more spiritual that other people are not. I didn't always think that because I didn't actually think about it, but once I started to, like, explore the field, obviously when I found out about, like, the whole empath thing, I was like, there's just way too much that parallels here, and I can't rest until I find what the link is. So it's like my mission at this point.
So do you think that the difference between people like yourself who are empathic and people, I guess, like me who aren't, do you think that, like, there's some sort of a suppression going on, or is it chemical? Like, what makes you and me different?
That's a really good question. I feel like, so, how do I want to answer this? Well, I feel like there are empaths, and then there's people who are highly intuitive in other ways. So, like, an empath isn't necessarily someone who hears a voice, for example, but you can have somebody who hears voices but also feels things really intensely. And I feel like people who don't feel or hear things, it's not that they don't have some connection to energy. I just feel like it's either perceived differently or, how do I want to phrase this?
Do you think
I almost feel like we all have, like, our different way of connecting. Like, some people just know stuff, and everybody's intuitive. I mean, you don't have to, you know, be able to tell the future to be someone who's intuitive. We've all had gut feelings before. And I feel like it's, you know, how much of that gut feeling are you going to focus on, and what's it going to turn into if you actually take the time to explore it. And then people who explore it deeper are probably going to have a faster or a different perception of what happens, and it comes on quicker, or they learn to control it and make it work for them.
That makes a lot of sense. I like your theory. Yeah, maybe some people are just more open to the idea, and maybe some people aren't.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe it's chemical. Maybe I've got some sort of a weird chemical blocker going on that you don't have, or maybe you've got like this. Maybe you got like this weird opening chemical that I don't have, or who knows? Maybe you're just luckier than me.
It's funny because we're gonna explore. Well, first of all, I think anybody can be trained to be psychic. I don't feel like it's something that you have to be born with.
Really?
Really, because I train people all the time, and you could be like a hardcore muggle and have never had an experience really before, and then have it turn into something. Because I really feel like it has a lot more to do with what we pay attention to. Obviously, we live in just a fast-paced world, so to even like slow down and actually taste what our food tastes like is like, you know, unheard of. So, you know, you think about this concept of mindfulness where people actually slow down and pay attention to what they're feeling, what they're hearing, what they're seeing, the thoughts that are going on through their head. And I feel like if people learn how to slow down and incorporate this concept of mindfulness into their world, they would open themselves up to a whole new reality, which would include that intuitive element.
Wow, look at you. I think it's really cool that in that explanation, you just tossed in the word muggle like it's a regular real word. I think that is awesome. No. I think that's really cool. All of those words that she made up are making their way into our lexicon, so that's awesome.
We use that at Yale. It's like, where's the muggle group?
Oh my God, that is amazing.
Where's my psychic group?
They should use that. Like, I'm sure Muggle will be in the spelling bee, the National Spelling Bee sometime, and they can use it in a sentence like that.
I hope it is. That would be great.
So, I have not had a chance to read these yet because they just showed up yesterday at my house. And let me also say that the padded envelope that they showed up in, I guess courtesy of, I don't know, the UPS or USPS, the package looked like it had been run over by a semi-truck. But the 2 books that were in it were unscathed, so they're fine. I just haven't had a chance to read them yet. So let's talk about your books, okay?
I thank you for purchasing them. That was very nice of you.
You're silly. I love to support people who are doing really cool things. That's kind of what this whole podcast is about. It's kind of getting the word out about fascinating people and the things that they're doing. So,
love it.
I have 2 books here written by Brittany Quagan. We just call her Brittles, thank you. And one is called... Okay, so the name of the character is Ren, R-E-N. And so the first book is Ren Awakened, and the second book is Ren Remembered. Is that right? I'm sorry, Reposed. Ren Reposed.
Yeah.
So what is Ren Remembered? What is that?
I have no idea what Ren Remembered is.
That's really funny. I heard an interview with you with this lady who was super sweet, and she said that you were working on your new book, Ren Remembered, and
yes,
I was wildly confused.
I remember that.
Okay, so the first one...
Yeah, she got that wrong.
Okay, so the first one, well, she got a couple of things wrong, and one of them was she played the song, whatever the most famous song by Gnarls Barkley is.
I'm going crazy.
Yes. Does that make me crazy? Whatever it is. And yeah, I'm going crazy. And so every single time she referenced that song, she said it was by Charles Barkley. And and I was sitting in a dentist's office in the waiting room listening, and I laughed so hard and so loud that the receptionist had to ask me to be quiet. I could not stop laughing. I was like, that guy's a basketball player and not so much a musician. It was the funniest thing. But
oh my God.
But she was super sweet, and it was a nice interview. So this character Ren Nagel, I'm assuming this is a girl. Like I said, I didn't read these. I'm sorry. So I'm assuming it's a girl only because you're a girl. That's really the main reason I'm assuming that. It's because you probably wrote these.
See, you are psychic.
So, oh my gosh!
Love it.
So this girl was a foster kid, or she was at one point. Were you ever a foster kid?
I was not a foster kid, but I feel like I have felt very much like a foster kid would in some instances in my life. I had a very interesting childhood that it was pretty traumatic, I guess you could say. And I had really absentee parents at a point in my life, and I kind of raised myself at certain points. And much like I would imagine a foster kid feels, where you just are just always feeling misplaced, I identified with that quite a bit. So I turned her into a foster kid to bring those points across.
So is it sort of like you don't really, like, you kind of feel out of place? It's sort of like a puzzle piece that doesn't fit? Is that kind of the feeling?
Kind of. Yeah, I mean, that was a part of it, like kind of any teenager would, but just in terms of having to raise myself and not feeling like I had a parental figure in my life, you know, where kids are, oh, my mom and dad came to my game and this and that. Like, I never really had any of that when I was a teenager, which is very much this age range that Ren is in. And it was really difficult for me. So I feel more like the misplacement with, like, family in that way.
So who is this book for? What's the demographic for this book?
It's funny because it's kind of for young adults, but more adults are reading it than young adults. But I don't know if that's just because my generation still loves young adult books, but it's more for young adults. There's just no sex in it is really the only difference between my book and the book that is for adults.
You don't have to to disclose this because, as the great Mary Kay said, lady never tells her age, but how old are you?
I'm going to be 31.
Okay, so I feared that. So when you said your age, your people your age or whatever, or your generation, that's what you said. Your generation is still like reading kids' books or young adult books. My children are 25 and 26, and my wife is a little bit older than that, and all of them, just like your whole generation, are like heroin style obsessed with the Harry Potter books. So
Who isn't?
I guess muggles like my dumbass.
Have you read them?
I read like, I don't know, the first 3 or 4, and I saw like the first, I don't know, 4 or 5 movies, but it is rabid, the fan base that this still has. I mean, she hasn't put a book out in what seems like 10 years, but it's probably only like 6 or 7. But oh my goodness, it's like it's more popular now than it was when they were coming out.
I love it. She's a goddess.
She is that. I'll give you that.
Basic human.
She's amazing and very creative, wildly creative.
I can't believe what came out of her head.
Yeah, it is. She must be one of your people. She must be an empath or something because her creativity is off the charts.
I'm convinced that she channeled that book. Like someone else went inside of her and then wrote this book because it's like the I don't even know, like the symbolism and the parallels, and just like there's so much of the spiritual world in that. And I don't even know if she did research on that or if it just happened. She's magical. Have you been to the theme park?
No, because I grew up poor, and so it's really hard for me to rationalize spending that kind of money to travel from Texas to the theme park. And if I do go, there's no way I can't take my kids. So then that's a trip for 4, and then that just makes it exponentially more expensive.
Right. No, I totally feel you. We just went. This was my 5th time going.
Nice.
My vacations are me saving tons of money to go to the Harry Potter theme park. We just went, and it was ridiculous. It was $400 for a day.
Oh man!
I don't even know how that's real.
You just pushed my trip so far back in my calendar that oh my gosh, per day per person?
Oh, no.
That's insane. So you're gonna have to send an apology letter to my children for that comment. Now they're never gonna go.
I'm really sorry. No, we did the park hopper, so that's why it costs more money. And we went on a Saturday. There are ways around it being super expensive. We just did it the most expensive way possible because we're idiots. Well,
I think what I'm going to try to do is interview Harry Potter and see if I can get in that way.
Oh my God, that's a great idea. Let's start tweeting at him.
Yes.
So he can hop on the call.
Okay, so let's get back to these books. What made you decide to put a story on paper? Like, why did you decide to start writing?
I've always written. It was certainly an outlet for me growing up. And, well, again, I was somebody who always had just all kinds of crazy things playing out in my head. So stories were just constantly on repeat. And I pulled a lot from my own life experience for this particular series. Well, I was laid off from my job in insurance. I decided not to try and find a job. I figured, well, this is the perfect time to open my own business. So I did that, and while I was building it up, I had a lot of time on my hands because I didn't have a ton of clients yet. And I knew I wanted to write and decided that would be the perfect time to do so. So I didn't know exactly what I wanted to write about at the time. I had an idea of this storyline with someone who had very similar experiences to mine growing up, and then wanting it to turn into something more like superpowery, not superpowery, but on the spectrum of superpowers. But yeah, so because I wanted it to reach an audience who might be experiencing what I experienced. So when everything's not black and white, when there's a lot of gray area there, much like the line between being psychic and being psychotic. So that really was the inspiration behind writing the book. And other than that, I didn't really have any idea what I was writing. I just kind of put my fingers on the keyboard and just clacked away at the keys until a book formed. And that's kind of it.
So, without giving away any spoilers, can you tell us what the first book is about?
Sure. Ren's someone who craves security, who craves finding a place where she belongs, having grown up with also a very tough childhood living in the foster system. She's destabilized in a lot of ways that many of us can and some of us can't really imagine, very much along the lines of mental illness. And she has all these issues, but learns that through shifting her thoughts, she can become empowered and responsible for her own future and her own reality. And she starts to view who she is not as someone who's flawed, but as an asset to the world. Because I feel like we all have the power, but also we have a lot of defense mechanisms that we put up. So kind of like what we talked about, it's like some of us have the power and some of us have these, like, feeling like we have a barrier to tap into those powers. And we put up these defense mechanisms and hone them throughout our lives. But yeah, so the idea of the first book and kind of the whole series is to reach your power and control the negativity that's within you and outside of you that can isolate us, and sort of create an us against them mentality with the characters and the relationships that she finds along the way, and which is what she needs to do. Yeah, she's got to find her power, and she's got to use that to ultimately save the world. But doing that not just on her own, but with others. And I feel like the part that separates Ren from other books, because I've gotten this question before where people are like, well, what makes Ren different than the other teen books out there, is that she finds out she has a superpower and isn't actually sick. She really struggles with that. She doesn't just like wake up and say, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm going to take this and save the world. It's actually something you see her struggle with throughout the series, kind of going back and forth between what she's been told her whole life, what she's been taught to believe, versus trusting in who she actually is and what she knows to be true. So
I think that's probably more realistic in how it would play out. Like if a teenage girl figured out she was basically a superhero with superpowers, I think that it wouldn't just, like you say, the next day she's like, all right, cool, I guess I'll just save the world. I think there would be a lot of struggle with coming to grips with that, and whether or not you're a crazy person or is this real, or I feel like there would be a lot of struggle.
Yeah, me too. And there was a lot of struggle in my life with that. So I just feel like that, I don't know, it just seems like something that people can connect to on a deeper level. It's like, oh, I can relate to that now, because their superpowers aren't anything that's like that out of control or unrealistic. It's stuff that people do all the time in various ways. So they're just a little roided up for like the book sense, for the fiction sense. But yeah, I agree. I think it's very, very much more realistic.
So the first book, Ren Awakened, let's just assume that the awakened refers to her sort of awakening to her powers and her destiny, and that she's not crazy, sort of a kind of a you're not nuts thing. Is that right?
Yep.
I couldn't have said that worse if I tried. I apologize.
No, it was wonderful.
I stumbled through it like an idiot. So the second book, Ren Repose, what is that? What is Repose? What's this one about?
Where we leave Ren in Awakened and where we find her in Repose is in a place that a lot of people would not expect, because she ultimately really falls back on this belief in who she is, and even more so struggles with this role that she has to play as someone who's meant to help save the world and control basically the negative energy that has just been absorbed by the earth before it's about to implode. So again, very much parallel to what we all feel in our world today with a lot of stuff that's going on. So in Repose, she's got to find her way back to this role. But this one is actually my favorite. I feel like if you have to pick your favorite of your books list, this is definitely my favorite. I felt like I had to write Awaken just to get like the backstory out of the way to write this one. And this one is about how the past, including our past lives, because Ren is someone who's lived many lifetimes before, can influence your present, and how a lot of times things can really unravel because of the past stuff that we bring into our present life. And Ren gets to explore that, and she meets some really jazzy characters along the way. In the first book, you meet one of my favorite characters, which is Karma, literally Karma, but in a almost like a godlike state. And she plays a much bigger role in the second book, which is really fun. But it's also a parallel to Ren almost having to die to be reborn into the state that we need her to be in to take on the world.
That's a lot of pressure to put on a teenager. What's the matter with you?
I'm a jerk. I'm a total jerk. I give her some friends that have to take that burden on as well. Because I don't feel like, any of us are in this alone. And I didn't want to reflect that in my book, where it's like, she's in this. Because I don't feel like any hero really does anything wrong. Like, everybody's got, sidekicks, and everybody's got these people who help them along the way. And for some reason, it's always the hero who gets the trophy. So I don't think that's really fair. So I don't put all the pressure on her. She's obviously a big part of it because we're following her journey through this. But there's a lot of heroes in this story. And I'd be a terrible person if I tried to say otherwise, because I feel like that's more realistic too.
I agree. So, is there more books to come in this series?
Yeah, I have a third one. I have not been writing it the way that I should be. I didn't even know how it was going to start, so we'll see. It's going to be just a surprise to everybody else with how many books I come out with.
So you don't even know how many books is going to be in this series?
No. My plan was 3. But sometimes I get this really horrible feeling that I'm never right for. But who knows? I'll find out when I get there, I guess.
Well, you could just put it off forever, like that one guy who writes those one books about swords and thrones and things. Just put it off forever and just enjoy the first books.
Yeah, I could do that. And then maybe it can be turned into a show, and then I'll be forced to write the end, so that way the show doesn't ruin it for me.
Well, I don't know if he's going to get to it before they do.
I know. Oh, my God.
So, in one of these books, in the second one, the very last page is the About the Author page. And the very last thing that it says is that when you aren't teaching, counseling, or writing, you're traveling with family and friends, dyeing your hair every color of the rainbow, trying craft beers, and this is my personal favorite, talking to the moon.
Yeah, some people hunt trees. I talk to the moon.
What do you say? Is it personal? Is it private?
Hey, girl.
Hey, girl. What's
hey, girl,
up?
What's up?
Yeah, what's up besides you?
I never know. Sometimes I'll be like, hey, moon. I don't know. I feel like the moon's super magical. So I'm like, give me some of your good magical voodoo, moon.
Yes.
Things like that.
Give me some of that magic moon juice.
Yes.
Well,
yeah.
Brittles, you have been a delight. As we're wrapping up, is there anything that I didn't bring up that you wanted to talk about?
I don't think so. You covered all the awesome points, the important ones. No, this is great. I loved it.
Cool. Tell everybody where they can find you personally on social media.
They can find me on Twitter at BITTYIN, and then Wonderland. You can visit my Instagram, which is Brittany123. I'm on Facebook at Brittany Quagan, and my website is www.brittanyquagan.com.
And as always, all of those social media tags and the website will be in the show notes. So just scroll down to the show notes and you'll find those. And where can we find these books? Again, this is Ren Awakened and Ren Reposed. I found them on Amazon. Is that the only place to get them?
You can get them on Amazon. You can get them on Barnes & Noble. I think those are the only 2 places.
Are both of them
Unless you go to, like, random tiny bookstores, but...
Really?
Yeah, there are a couple tiny bookstores. Well, in Connecticut, at least. They're at some cool little funky local places.
So, the Barnes & Noble, would that be online or in the actual stores as well?
They're in some stores, but you definitely get them online for Barnes & Noble.
Rad. Kind of didn't even know Barnes & Noble was still open. But that's awesome.
They are.
Very cool. Everybody go buy these books. Like I said, there will also be a link in the show notes that's an Amazon link straight to these books. So again, just scroll down to the show notes and buy both of these books because the third one is coming eventually, guys.
Yes, I love it.
Okay, so Brittany, I'm going to go ahead and kill it here, but give my boy Petey Pants a nice sweet wedgie from me. And then
I will. He told me to tell you hello.
And then, of course, give him a kiss on the cheek from you. The wedgie's from me,
Sure.
and then the kiss is from you.
I love it. I will absolutely do that.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you calling and talking with me.
Thank you. This was great. I appreciate you having me on.
You are silly. The pleasure was all mine. Thank you so much, Brittany. All right, bye-bye. Have a good week, okay?
You too. Thanks.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, guys. This is Steve Owens from Fascination Street Podcast. You know, the podcast you just listened to. Well, I need your help. I need to get more ratings and reviews on iTunes. So here's what I'm going to do. I had some special Fascination Street Podcast surprise gifts made up for everybody who rates and reviews the podcast on iTunes. Doesn't matter what you rate it. It doesn't matter how you rate it, as long as you rate it. And then email a screenshot to fascinationstreetpod@gmail.com along with your name and mailing address so that I can mail you your free surprise thank you gift. So if you've gotten this far, go ahead and take another couple of minutes to rate and review the podcast, and you might as well subscribe and tell a friend. It helps me keep doing what I'm doing. So thanks, guys. Opening music is the song Magnolia from the 2014 album Intransigence, used with permission from Douglas Miles Clark. Closing music is Apollo from the 2001 album Into the Known by the band Sapphire. Thanks for hanging out with us and getting to know a little bit about our guest. We'll see you next time on Fascination Street.